Right, you're turned on.
Hello.
Yes. Hello, and welcome to Mythras, a fantasy setting, Dungeons and Dragons type of thing, but a little bit better. Welcome. Nice to have you along. Thank you for coming on and joining us on this wonderful evening. It's nice and hot here in the UK, and if you're from Sweden, I do apologise.
Why? What's happening in Sweden? Oh, they lost, didn't they?
Yeah, 2-0.
All right. I didn't know whether or not they had earthquakes or something. And
It's Sweden. I
hey,
don't think they're on a fault
global
line.
warming and all that. You could have anything anywhere nowadays.
Not in Sweden. I don't think
Why
anything.
not?
I don't
We
think
have them
anything.
here. We have them here.
Have what side? You have a Mia.
No earthquakes here. I'm gonna
Yeah.
Google to see whether or not there's earthquakes in
Yeah,
Sweden.
we had one the other week. Yeah, because I woke me up. I thought somebody was breaking into the house. So I released the dogs. Do you know what the two? Can you remember what the two dogs were called in Magnum?
Zeus and Apollo.
No, I wasn't
In your
asking
face.
you.
There's always one who has to shout.
No.
I know.
Can I just say that
Outside.
I don't know what Medivac is leading up to tonight, or whether or not he's had a hard time today, but I'm going to have to mute him pretty. Oh no, it's all right. He mutes himself. That's all right. Not a problem. Excellent. So, yeah, we're the party's in the middle of an interesting situation. And we're just saying beforehand that there was no combat in last week's game, which is the sort of adventure I like. Lots of role-playing opportunities to use all those skills that you've never seen before or never used before, rather than just wielding a sword around for the majority. And trying to solve issues with a blade, I don't think it's the right thing to do. So anyway, the party are in an interesting situation in a town on the far side, in the far western side of Odis, called Advent. Before I give a complete synopsis of what happened last week and where the players are up to, I'm going to allow the players to introduce themselves and their characters, and we're going to start off with the legend that is Mr. Pickles.
I am Mr. Pickles. I am playing our theist of the group. I serve Amriel, the light moon goddess. I would describe Bartleby Fumus, my theist character, as a very loving and compassionate character, though naively so most of the time. Almost all of his spells and prayers, well, all of them are prayers, but some of them are technically spells within the system. All of them have to do with helping and preventing combat, preventing danger in combat, and being a good guy. It also brings to the table lore of monsters and history, an obsession with goblins specifically. And I'm going to throw the microphone, if I may. Longshakes, why don't you catch the mic?
Thank you, Pickles. Hi, guys. My name is Longshanks EPG. Tonight, I'm playing the warrior of the party, Hengist. He is a big, tall, strong, hulking chap with long, sort of like golden hair that he's braided into just like pigtails that come down from each of the sides. And so then has a long flowing ponytail behind. He's got sort of like a short, close cropped beard, wears heavy armor that's sort of like enameled in green and silver and stuff. And then it's got a prancing horse in it's like a white enamel across his chest. Fights with a sword and shield. Would prefer to solve most things with a sword if he can, but if he can't, he'll let Gully and Bartleby talk their way out of the situation. And that's about it for the moment. I shall pass it on to Chugga because he's not paying attention.
Hi guys, I'm Chubwugger. I play Gulliver, who is the youngest member of the party. He's slight of build, scrawny, ginger hair, freckly complexion. He's an apprentice sorcerer. He's an apprentice in the Order of the Kraken, which specializes in teleportation, communication, and transportation spells. He's still very low down in the order, so doesn't have all that many spells to call upon at the moment. Yes, and I shall pass on to Medivac.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Medivac. I play Hasra Khan. He is a nomad from the steppes, and I'd like to think of him as the group scout, wilderness expert. He's quite lithe I think it's the right word, wears a full robe with a veil, and likes to use a short spear and a scimitar in combat. Doesn't really like jumping into combat straight away, but he will try and find other options. But if he does, he will. Very good at tracking and dogs with a good accent like this. And with that, I shall pass it on to our amazing GM in Wills.
Right, so the party have had an interesting journey up to this point. They are currently trying to locate 3 items that will hopefully lead them to the final seed, or to a dragon they believe, who is called Cassini. They've already found the first part of the trio, which is a bracelet which Bartleby wears attached to his wrist that he cannot get off at all, and which is slowly sucking out his life force. The other 2 items are a death mask and a talk. And the party found some information in Lindo, which is the capital city of Odess, that the death mask was part of a treasure set known as Hasret's treasure. This is legendary states that this is can be located on the far side of Odess to the west, near a town called Advent. The party couldn't get there straight away. However, they relied on Gulliver's Blue Order, the Order of the Kraken, to teleport them across them using the infamous portal spell. They managed to get to an old mage's tower by the name of Matilda, and they managed to get there. They defeated vampire bats, killed a mother lizard, and managed to escape with all their faculties intact when one harpy attacked the party of 4 and did nice things to them. They met a strange person on the way down to Advent, which the party, although the players remember very vividly, the party have no recollection of at all. And they arrived in the town of Advent. Now, just to give everybody a more up-to-date view, this is where we actually are. And if you remember, the purple cross there was where Matilda's tower was, and you came down to the little town of Advent. Now, Advent is a town-stroke village. It has both an outer and inner palisade, and the party arrived on the eve of the big market that was going to happen the day after. This is what Advent actually looks like. And the party managed to find accommodation in what they thought would be accommodation in a place called the Wild Wyvern. Anyway, when they were there, they were quite happily sat around when they were witness to a murder. And the culprits managed to escape the tavern. And while Bartleby and Gulliver dashed to the aid of the person who had sadly died in the tavern, but interestingly enough, the guys around had just offered the party jobs moments before. Anyway, the one of the fellow merchants of Zoran, a guy called Tobias, said that he would value the characters' help to locate the murderess called Fineal, and the party set off to look around and try to find her. As they went down, and I forget which alleyway it was, but it was one of the alleyways on the map. Does anybody remember which one it was?
I feel like it was pinging on the map, the one on the right here, but that might have just been my choice.
Yeah, that's.
I thought it was down here.
Well, that's fine then. So anyway, they were walking along, and Hasra and Gulliver were walking on ahead, and then Bartleby was taken to one side by a rather elderly woman and called into a nearby alleyway. Hengist went with them for protection, and lo and behold, they found Fineal there, who was actually disguised as an old woman. She set out some of the information that the party are about to share with each other, and sort of like said, this is the situation now. And sort of like said, and near the end of that conversation and where we finished it last week, I think Bartleby or Hengist voiced the question, what does Zorand have that is so important? And Fineal said half of a map. And of course the next question was, a map of what? And the answer was given at the end of last session, a map to the location of Hessaret's treasure. And that's where we finished it last week. And that is where we're going to start it off this week. So, Hasra and Gulliver, you are out in the sort of like the alleyway, if you remember. And Bartleby and Hengist, you had gone down the side alleyway. You had this conversation with Fineal, and of course Loram was there as well. If you remember, he stepped out of the corridor and sort of like darkened the alleyway because he's a massive sort of like hunk of a brute. And then they sort of like disappeared as quickly as they arrived, leaving you guys to decide what to do. And we will pick it up there. And does anybody have any questions before we set sail with the adventure?
Luck.
No, because we're not going to ask about luck because we know that it.
Yes, luck is up and ready, and I think you had already got magic points back from your last rest.
So
until you have another rest, because I think you were doing lots of things throughout the evening, weren't you? So I will hand the reins over to you guys, and off you go.
Are we starting in the alleyway with
So Bartleby and Hengist, you're actually in the alleyway, and you've heard the discussion. You've had the discussion with Fineal, and Hasra and Gulliver are waiting a little way down from the alleyway, where they stopped and looked around to see where you were.
Hengist! Hessaret's treasure is exactly what we're looking for.
I know, Bartleby. This is amazing. But we need to work out who has the other half of the map.
Well, I mean, we didn't she just say? Didn't Fineal just say that Tobias has the other half of the map?
Yes, that's true. Thinking about it, Gulliver mentioned after last night what he saw when he first got into the room, that he saw Zorand's body with sort of that seemed to have been rifled, and somebody seemed to have gone through the pockets and that sort of thing. So perhaps Tobias, that would fit. If Tobias has the other half of the map, he could have got it from Zorand.
This is certainly something to kill over. We must tread very carefully here, Hengist. We don't want ourselves to be entered into this death list.
That's true, but at the same time, we should try and work out who killed Zorand. Was it Tobias or Fineal? Because both of them seem to have motive, although Tobias seems to have had more of an opportunity, or an opportunity to go through the pockets afterwards.
I suppose anybody has the potential to be able to poison somebody to death. It's just a matter of who would have had access to poisons.
I mean,
I know there was a poison, but I'm not sure what. Was it the mushrooms?
That seems to be, from what I can remember, what they said. Although Tobias is a merchant, isn't he? So surely he'll have more contacts with people, or more things would come across his palm, if you know what I mean.
True, but you would expect a more exquisite poison, I suppose, in that case, wouldn't you? Not common mushrooms you might find in the hillside?
That is also true, unless he was trying to frame Fineal.
could be. Gulliver might know more about poisons and such. Let's go.
I think we should go and tell Hasra and Gulliver what's happened. That makes sense.
Make our way over out of the alleyway to rejoin our cohorts.
Yeah, cool. They are waiting in the alleyway.
I think we were going to be sort of like questioning
That's right. Yeah.
people and asking them about Fineal.
Yeah, okay then. That's absolutely cool. So if you can roll for me which skill are you planning on using?
Well, I was hoping for sort of. Mine's very low, but maybe an influence, insight.
Yeah, insight would be used to find out if people were lying or something. If you want to use either, you could use influence if you wish, or if you've got oratory or anything that sort of like, I don't suppose you have seduction, but yeah, I think it's all right to roll some influences if you wish. And before you roll them, just out of interest, what's the sort of general questions that you want to be asking?
Well, we were told by Tobias, I think it was, that Fineal was could normally be found in the poorer part of town. So, I mean, it would basically be asking whether or not they had heard of anybody called Fineal, and from her description, whether or not they could point us in the direction of which whereabouts she could be found in this.
Yeah,
where is her house?
Yeah, that's not a problem. If you would like to roll your skills, then are you doing it as two separate ones, or are you teaming up together?
What is it, an influence roll?
Yeah.
Mine's totally rubbish. So do you want me to team up and add to yours?
Yeah, what have you got?
14.
Does teaming up make it a level difficulty harder?
No.
Right, so you've got 14. What's that then? 2%?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Oh, do you want me to roll separately and see if we can use a luck to reverse it if it comes that way?
Well, the chances are we would probably be doing it separately, because you would be going.
You've got one side now, be on the other side.
I'll do the other side.
So roll your influences. Nice one from Gulliver. Yeah, it's only 3 over. Do you wish to use luck on it, Hasra?
Oh, do you know, I can't do anything with it, can I, apart from re-roll?
You can re-roll, yeah.
But no, I'm not wasting the luck for the sake of getting 3 points less. I'll just go with what he said.
Yeah, okay then. Tell me your questions again, sorry, Gulliver.
So, wants to know whether or not anybody knew of Fineal.
Yeah, okay, so that's the first question. That's easily answered. It seems that Fineal's extremely popular. Everybody sort of like says, anybody you sort of like talk to, anybody you ask, has a lot of smiles for her and say what a wonderful person she is, always looking out for her friends and colleagues. They say that they're not too happy, they're a bit scared of her bodyguard called Laram, but apart from that, you seem to get a very positive vibe about Fineal. Yeah, next question.
Whereabouts does she live?
Yeah,
we heard that she had a house in this area of the town.
That's a really interesting question, because as you ask a whole load of people, you seem to get a whole range of answers. So much so that you probably think that she's the sort of person who has either multiple addresses, or she goes into one house just to leave by the back door and goes somewhere else. It seems that she's either living everywhere in the poorer section or nowhere. And what's your final question?
I think that those were the two.
Okay,
Those
cool.
were the two questions. I didn't want to go into, what does she do?
I think so. I think you ask when did somebody see her last, or not?
No.
Or do you want to know what she does?
Well, yes, yeah. And what does she do?
Yeah, and that comes back very unanimously across everybody that she's a merchant. She deals in fine goods, and she's also very good at her job. So it seems that the general feeling that you get, Gulliver, is that Fineal is a well-liked, respected member of the community within Advent.
But that's according to the the poorer area of the town, is it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a mixture of people walking around here. There's anybody, there'll be some merchants heading out to the marketplace because it's market day. And there'll be some general sort of like mothers looking after their children on doorsteps, or, people selling their wares from the front of their shops, or generally people walking around the place. You didn't stop any guards.
No.
Yeah. Cool.
Just waiting for the.
So now Bartleby and Hengist, you come out of the alleyway and meet up with Gulliver and Hasra.
With a very concerned expression on Bartleby's face.
Hengist is sort of like a face of pure concentration, deep thought on his face at the same time.
Which gives him a slight look of constipation, but...
Yeah.
Did you say we approached both Gulliver and Hasra, or just Gulliver?
Yeah, they're both there. They sort of like are talking to different people. But as you come out of the alleyway, they sort of like merge back. They sort of like see you again, and they merge back. Yep.
Excellent. My friends, we have troubling
but interesting
revelations.
news.
Yes, interesting, but we're not sure how to act. I'm afraid.
You're looking a bit confused, Bartleby. What's wrong? Could you not help the old lady?
I lean in really close and pull Hasra in close because I was just leaning into Gulliver. Wait, Hengist, get in here too. We found Fineal.
What? Did you capture her? Is she tied up in the alleyway?
No, she was the old woman, and she has part of a map to the place we're specifically here looking for.
No.
Did you get a look at the map?
Yes. I think
Not.
there's a dark alleyway.
Look. But
Asking out of game, was it torn or did it look like it was cut? The map.
Definitely torn.
Very like if somebody was ripping it really quickly, or if they ripped it carefully.
It was quite. If you remember, it was from corner to corner, and it looked quite deliberate.
Okay.
Rather, it didn't look like it had been pulled into or anything. It looked like somebody had probably gone like that.
That's very good to know. It looked like somebody tore it in half, and I think that it's possible that Tobias has the other half.
Did you get a look at Bartleby?
no, unfortunately not. She was standing far enough away, and then her silent friend appeared behind us as well. So we couldn't get too close.
But she seemed very believable.
She wants us to meet us. She's going to send someone to contact us, and she wants us to meet to talk further about Tobias and what he's done.
How do we know we can trust this woman?
I want to think we can, but I don't To be perfectly honest, Hasra, I don't think we can trust either of them.
Why would she show the map? I don't understand.
Because I think she said that she was innocent, and that
I can understand
Tobias
her being
framed her.
innocent, because I mean, who would run away from a murder if they were guilty? If you know what I mean, you would stay and pretend to be innocent. But if she feared for her life, perhaps, maybe. But
and then there's what Gulliver told me last night about when he arrived in the room, Zoran's pockets seemed to have been turned out, and somebody had been rifling with the body.
That's right. Yes, I
She
remember.
wouldn't have had a chance to have done that.
No.
Well, I'm not being funny, but we can't work for both people. Tobias has already asked us to find Fineal, and now Fineal wants us to double-cross Tobias.
But what if they're both in on this?
Maybe
And they're just trying to frame the other one, even though they're both guilty.
Maybe there's a way to shear both sheep at the same time.
I mean, after all, we need that map. Both halves.
But if they both got the map, they both know that it's for something important, and neither of them are going to actually. They're just going to use us to find what they want, and then they're not going to give us the treasure.
That's why we're huddling, is because I feel that we might be dead. If we're just
I like that. Sorry.
sensitive information right now.
I was hoping for a "Hey team" at the end.
If things go well.
I mean, what was your opinion on Fineal? Was she telling the truth?
I believe her.
I believe that she thinks she's telling the truth when she was saying it. If that makes no difference, Gully.
Hengist, you're not very good at finding when people are telling the truth. You're better with swords, and Bartleby, you're more interested in seeing the good in people.
Very trusting.
I wish I had been there. I could have I could tell if she was telling the truth or not.
I think we should try. I think we should go and meet up with Fineal when she calls, and then we can decide then if we've talked to Tobias some more.
If we could get a look at the map, we could see whether it was the good bit or the bad bit.
That's a good point.
There's always a good side of a map and a bad side of the map, isn't there? I mean, what happens if she's got the bit that shows them going out of Advent? That's not much use to anybody. It's the end of the map that we want.
But then we won't know where to go. But we'd need to know where to have come from. I think if we're going to meet up with them later, we need to know. Sorry, that was a little loud. We need to know what the public thinks about Fineal and Tobias. We need to gather as much of the truth as we can.
Everybody seems to like Fineal. They don't know where she lives, but I think she moves about a lot. Not in that way, but in the way that she doesn't want people to know where she lives, because she probably has lots of valuables because she's a merchant.
She is really nice. I agree with everybody you've talked to, I guess.
But
then we need to know more about Tobias. Is he equally liked? It's a question we'll ask.
see, everything, because, well, Zoran, he was very nice. He offered us a job. He definitely seemed to be the leader.
So, but what we need to work out is, were they working together or were they all employed by Zoran? Because if they're working together and one had one half of the map and Tobias, for example, had another half of the map, or Fineal had the other half of the map, that would explain why one or either of them or both of them killed Zoran to get his half.
Maybe it was a way to keep the other half in check.
But that would only work if they're working together. But if they were all working for Zorand, then that wouldn't necessarily make as much sense.
If there's 2 halves and 3 people who didn't have a half.
Well, everything would point to, from what you're saying, Tobias didn't have.
And then there's also Laram and Ark, remember?
I've discounted them completely as guards.
I thought they were hench. I've put those down as henchmen.
Yeah, if you wish to put them down as henchmen, that's fine. I wanted you to be aware that they were at
part of the group.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember him saying when Laran chased after Fineal that there was something between them. So, and it wasn't a bodyguard. It's just he was more. Yeah,
Laram and Fineal they must be working together because Laram appeared out of the back of the alley to.
But then again, out of character. Then again, if there's 2 halves of the map, do the others have something else which would also help in this?
I suppose it depends, Hasra, where the main part of the map is. If it's done, because the map seemed to have been ripped deliberately, as opposed to ripped by accident or in a tussle. So I'm thinking if it was deliberately, then maybe not knowing maps much, but if it was ripped in that way, it would be covering so that you would need both halves to do something to get there, as opposed to one half having the X and one half having something else.
Where do you guys want to continue having this conversation? Because I know you're talking in hushed tones at the moment, but you are on sort of like quite a busy thoroughfare, so there's people coming and going. And remember, it's also market day. It's coming up to about lunchtime. So I didn't know whether or not you wanted to go and frequent one of the taverns, or whether or not you wanted to go to the marketplace, or I think you actually slept at Tobias's place.
We did
last time, so I didn't know, because a quick chat in the streets is probably fine. A long debate is probably going to attract attention. Just on that, can you roll some perception rolls for me, please? Everybody can roll one because you're around, and I know the score that I'm looking for.
Hengist succeeded in a perception roll.
Well, you don't know that because you don't know. It could be a Herculean.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no, it's not at all. So don't worry. So, you notice that Bartleby, you're the only person who doesn't really acknowledge this, mainly because you're still quite perturbed by the situation that the party's been put in. But the rest of you do notice that there's some there's a small congregation. And when I say congregation, I mean about somewhere between either 4, 5 or 6. You're not too sure, because they keep moving and some keep joining, and then some of these urchins, that you've got robbed by earlier on, and they don't seem to be approaching you. They just seem to be almost like on the other side of the street. And what you do notice, the reason I said that you don't know whether or not there's 4, 5 or 6 of them, is that you sort of like look, and when you look, sort of like one leaves, and then when you look again, there's a different one back, and then the next time 2 leave and 2, 3 more come back. So there seems to be quite a group of them. And although they're also like children, somewhere between the age of 8 and 16, they're in the typical urchin outfits. They're dirty. Every now and again, you can hear them begging for coinage from the passers-by, and the normal tuts and sort of like disgust from the people.
Do they seem to be watching us, or are they just being urchins.
Yeah, the only thing that you can probably draw from your observations is that they haven't moved from the place that they've been congregating at, so which is sort of like opposite where you are. So whether or not you don't know whether or not they're following you, in the sense that if you move off, then you would probably know. But they definitely seem to be having a keen interest in you, because they're not sort of like dispersing or anything. They seem to be just growing in numbers then dissipating. And the other interesting thing is they don't seem to be asking you for any coinage or anything like that. They probably got enough from you the other night.
Copper kettle in. Copper kettle in. Anybody?
I think it might be an idea. It seems that we're being stalked by the urchins again.
So I agree.
By the urchins, you say?
Well, I mean, I'm not good at this cloak and dagger stuff, but they seem to be not moving with us or approaching us. So perhaps they're keeping an eye on us.
Perhaps if we move away a little, maybe they might follow or stay where they are, and then we would know.
But I agree. It's about time that we have a nice drink of something and mull these thoughts over in a more secure area.
Copper kettle in.
That sounds like a reasonable plan. And out loud, Hasra will say, "Ah, my friends, let us go. Let us go now."
Hengist will start sort of waving his way through the crowd towards the Copper Kettle Inn, in that case.
Okay then. So is everybody going to the Copper Kettle Inn then?
Yeah, Gulliver wants to keep his hand in his tunic on his money pouch.
Okay then. If anybody has any streetwise skills, you can roll them now.
Yeah. Oh no.
Okay. Anyone
Well,
else?
stealth wouldn't count as that, would it? Damn.
No, and from the steps, your stealth would be more assumed to be almost like in a wilderness setting.
That's right.
Yeah. So yeah, Gulliver, and what thing that you do notice is that as you sort of like set off to the Copper Kettle Inn, these urchins are, I think the best way to say it is, they're keeping an eye on you. They're not necessarily following you. And you sort of like look behind at one point, used to sort of like because of your upbringing when you were selling stuff on the streets before Master Healy took you in as an apprentice. You sort of like are used to sort of like the way people move on the streets. And you notice that it looks like they're following you, and then all of a sudden the urchins turn and go down a side alley, and you follow on. You keep on walking, then you suddenly
there's another different one following us.
No, well, another two come out of the alleyway ahead of you. Does that make sense? And then join you. So it's not sort of like 2 or 3 urchins following you all the time. They seem to be very, very clever. And if anything, Gulliver, you get the feeling that they might even be, for want of a better word, trained. It doesn't look like, you wouldn't imagine from your time on the streets, they're very good what they're doing, and they're not allowing, and at the same time they're still also begging for coinage or hassling merchants and things like that. So you couldn't actually, hand on heart, turn round to a group of them and say, "Why are you following us?" Because
they're constantly changing.
Yeah, and technically they're not following you. But it's only your time on the streets that sort of like gives you this impression of what's going on. And it happens right through. You're actually coming through this gateway in the palisade at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, so you continue.
Gulliver's going to keep an eye on them.
Yeah, so you turn down. You notice within the middle of the palisade that it's a lot more busy, and there's a lot more activity going on, and you can tell that it's market day, and there's lots of people sort of like walking around and calling out. And there's things being sold left, right, and centre, And there's the normal sort of like upper class merchant daughters going around buying suitable clothing and cloth. And there's various traders calling out to try to entice you to your wear. And even when you get round to the Copper Kettle Inn, business is quite brisk. They seem to be serving some kind of stew with bread, and of course, because it's market day, it comes with mead, which is like a sweetened ale. And there's people sort of like stood outside with wooden bowls just eating it, and they seem to, and barmaids coming along putting tankards of mead down, and the whole place seems quite busy, and obviously making significant profit from the market that's in here today.
Okay, well we'll find a table if we can in a corner. If there is one, so that we're not in, so it's a bit quieter than the hustle and bustle of the main bit of the tap room.
Yeah, well, as you go in, there's several tables, but you suddenly notice that a rather round merchant has just finished his stew and ale, and he was in one of those little corner booths, and he was taking up most of it himself, but you managed to, he sort of like burps loudly and puts a sort of like a cotton handkerchief to his mouth and tosses some coinage to the innkeeper, and you quickly manage to slide in there into the corner cubicle. The seating's a bit damp where he was sitting, and there's a musty smell of sweat, but you think it's probably just sweat. You don't think he's messed himself. There's a bit of slop on the floor, and the table's a bit damp with the mead. But apart from that, it's fine. You settle down, and somebody comes over and asks for your order.
So Gulliver will order some water and a platter of food.
Yeah, well, is everybody having something to eat?
Meat and mead.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's exactly it. Yeah, so they bring over almost like a big pot, a bit like your cooking pot, Gulliver, and puts it on the table with 4 wooden bowls and spoons, and sort of like puts down 4 tankards of mead and water. And the water doesn't look the best colour, Gulliver, but it is water. And you sort of like, she stirs up the broth. Stew's probably an overstatement of what it is, and you sort of like use the ladle to sort of like plop some food into your bowls. If you're lucky, you might get a big piece of meat, but the majority of it is made up with almost like a transparent liquor, not like in alcohol, but like a liquid. And there's plenty of chopped vegetables in there, potatoes, carrots, some kind of root vegetable that you're not too sure about. And every now and again, there's sort of like, almost like a chunk of meat with a bone through it, maybe part of the neck or something like that. And if you remember from beforehand, there's no arable farming, livestock farming around here. Everything's shipped in, so you're not too sure what it is, but you taste it and it tastes pretty good. It's got a bit of flavour to it.
So whilst we're eating, Gulliver's going to say, so if they have the map, why haven't they gone and found the treasure?
Perhaps that's what the meeting was meant to have been about. Perhaps it was the organisation. Because if you're going off, if you're going after treasure, it's going to be some expedition. You're going to need provisions and equipment.
And people to hire. That's why he wanted us.
It could have been.
Or maybe there is a third bit of it. Not maybe the map, but I don't know. Maybe a password or a key or a.
I was thinking the same thing. Maybe a key or a unique item to use on to get in there.
I think that would make sense, because then if Tobias had the third bit, and Zoran had one part of the map, and Fineal had the other part of the map, they would all have to work as a group, and then Fineal has a henchman or a someone who's providing a bit of brawn, and so does Tobias. But Zoran didn't, and that's maybe why he wanted us.
Could have been. And that way with the four of us, we would have outnumbered. Well, he would have had more. There would have been a total of 5, 6 against the other two.
And Zoran seemed a very friendly person, a very nice, amiable person, from what I remember of him. So. I don't know. Maybe I can't work out why they would want to hurt him. Why not, all work together and get the treasure themselves? But I'm just a simple nomad.
I think we should have Fineal.
I think so too, but I feel that we should ask a few more questions. I feel if we knew what the population in this central area of town thought of them, then we might be able to know more of how they're perceived, not how they're trying to make us perceive them. And maybe the urchins might know if we ask their opinion of the two merchants. If they have any strong opinions, we might be able to get some insight.
To be honest with you, Bartleby, I think any information from the urchins is going to cost us silver, and they're going to tell us what we want to hear rather than what's. I think they're probably working for either Tobias or for Fineal. They seem to be watching us.
Oh, friends! Oh, hello! And you notice Tobias has come into the Copper Kettle Inn and has spied you over in the corner, and he's coming across to you, and he sort of like comes across to the table and looks at you all in turn, then looks at what you're eating, and he says, "Oh, copper kettle stew. Very brave of you. I never know whether or not you are brave to eat that or foolhardy. How goes it with the task?"
Do you think these floaty bits are carrot?
What are you holding up?
I'm showing him I'm sort of like prodding with my spoon in this broth thing as something sort of like comes up to the surface.
Okay, yeah, he sort of like says, "Well, I'm sure it was in the ground at some time in its life."
I thought it was a snake. What, carrot?
It could be. Well, never know. How goes it with the task? Have you located the murderess?
I haven't located her yet. No.
Oh, I
have been looking, but I haven't seen her at all.
And the rest of you?
We picked
I am the same. I'm very. She's a slippery person. I have not seen her anywhere.
She is a very slippery person, my good man. A slippery person and a murderess as well.
Is there any more information perhaps you could give me about her, so it may help us?
About Fineal?
But where she likes to go, or her activities, what does she,
Well, it is completely unbeknownst to me where she is now. Beforehand, she would stay in her apartment, and which is on the northeast side of town. But have you checked there?
I think you told us to check there last night, didn't you? So yes.
Yes, well, I was hoping your search throughout the streets would have been beneficial. Is she still in Advent, do you think?
I would have thought so.
The problem is, Mr. Tobias, is that there's so many people about at the moment because of the market day that it's really, really hard to search the streets properly.
I see. She is a cunning one, this Fineal. She knew this would be a perfect opportunity to slip away after completing her awful and dastardly act last night.
Why would she do this?
Why? Why kill Zarand?
He seemed like such a nice fella.
Well, that is an excellent question. And can I just say, Mr. Bartleby, he does know your names, doesn't he? Yeah. It is a question that kept me up for the most of the night. And I'd like to ask Fineal herself, I think. I suppose it comes down to greed, maybe.
Greed. Would
Yes.
Zarand have anything worth taking?
Well, who would know? But this morning, I went to Zarand's place to get him some burial clothes. For Mr. Piggins is somewhat concerned about the dead body, and we have decided that it's time to bury him forth as quickly as possible. But when I got to Zarand's accommodation, his own home, would you believe? I found the place ransacked. She must have been there before me.
But why would she ransack it?
Did he have jewels or big sacks of coins of gold?
Well, obviously, Fineal was searching for something.
I thought he was your good friend. Wouldn't he have told you something, perhaps, of what he had that she might
Well,
have?
I know he had some wealth tucked away for sure. But at the look of things, and I am no expert in this, it definitely looked like she was looking for something in particular, shall I say.
Well, I wonder what that could have been.
Yes. What indeed?
Did it look like she was looking for something big or something small, or?
Listen, gentlemen. I'm just going to come clean with you, okay? And I hope you accept this honest approach that I'm giving you.
Honesty has always been the best policy in my eyes.
Yes. Well, since you are involved in this, he seems to be pausing every now and again. Since you are up to your eyes in this already, I will give you the information I hoped would never have to come forward. You see, some time ago, Zarand got his hands on an old map. He sort of like looks round and finds a spare stool that a young lad is about to sit on, and he sort of like whips it out and over to himself and sits down. You hear this almighty clatter behind, and all his companions sort of like point at this teenage lad now who's on the floor, and they all laugh at him as his mead covers him. Well, the guy, he got this old map. A guy he knows, Zarand that is, the late Zorand, should I say. Zorand got the map from a guy from across the river. He sold it to him, probably in Sildar, I would have thought. Anyway, apparently it used to be some kind of family heirloom that was passed down the lineage from mother to daughter to daughter to son to wife, etc., etc. And by tracing it back, it would appear that the map once belonged to the great someone who was actually a villain named Hessaret. Now, you are probably familiar with this Hessaret person.
No.
You have not heard of the Black Scourge of the frontier?
I'm very sorry, we're not from around these here parts.
I am shocked that you came out here on your own accord, not knowing the legend about Hasra the barbarian hero, the Black Scourge of the frontier. He's a legend around here, and Zoran realised that if his heirloom story from the guy turned out to be true, we could all be rich as kings. Because, yes, Master Bartleby, long before the time of our grandfathers, this Hessaret used to pillage the whole countryside for years and years. They never could catch him and his bandits. Well, until they finally did. You see, Hessaret got too greedy and tried to take Advent itself. But the king's soldiers were lying in wait for him, and that was that. He died, with several swords piercing and skewing his body like a stuffed pig. But nobody ever found his hoard of treasure at all. Yeah, think about it. Years of stealing from everyone around. Villagers, merchants, soldiers, piles and piles of gold and jewels. Yet nobody knows where it all went.
And he had this map?
Ah, Master Hasra, you are following this story well. I can tell you are of keen intellect. Well, over the time, Zoran became almost obsessed and dug in and around tales and lore. Slowly, bit by bit, he became sure that his map he had bought was the real thing. And he told us so a couple of days ago. Seems a lot longer now. Somehow, he has been gone but a few hours, and the hole in my heart has yet to be filled with his absence.
Did he ask you for help?
More than help, Master Gulliver. We started settling our business and preparing for an expedition. But then last night, well, you saw what happened. Fineal must have got it into her head to steal the map and poison Zorand. Probably all of us, for that matter. I, luckily, had not even taken a bite of my dinner, and I wasn't about to try it afterwards.
A shrewd move.
I knew you would agree with me, Master Hasra. I think the little wretch got a little less than she bargained for.
Women, uncanny creatures.
Yes, serves her right. But the boss, Zorand, obviously suspected her treachery, for he tore the map into two and hid the pieces separately. I know, because the day before yesterday he gave me the other half.
So you have half of the map?
Half of the map is in my possession.
That's very good.
Can you not use it to find the treasure?
Well, that is a problem. Half a treasure map is useless by itself.
So you really want us to find the map then, rather than Fineal?
Would you like to see my map?
Yeah.
Can we?
Meet me back at my accommodation. I have a slight business to settle, at my merchant stall, and then I will be back. Enjoy your food, and I will see you in just over 1 hour when the
Wonderful.
sun just goes past the old clock tower. Meet me back at my abode, and we can talk further, and I will show you my piece of the map.
That's good. It would be nice to see what we're looking for.
And he sort of like turns away round and almost like with a flourish heads out.
Hasra will hold up his hand and sort of like very quietly say, "Don't say anything out loud at the moment until we've looked around and see if anybody's listening." And we'll have a look around, see if anybody's listening.
Yeah, you sort of like say that to the people in a non-Hasra voice, and there is somebody approaching the table, and a lad says, "Excuse me, do you mind if I have this stool?"
No, of course not. By all means, good sir.
Thank you. He smells a bit of mead, and you notice at the front of his shirt, his tunic's a bit wet. And he picks up the stool and he takes it back and sits down on it. I didn't know whether or not Gulliver was going to wait until he was about to sit down and then just teleport the stool to his hand.
That would be nasty.
and then once he fell down, this will like cancel the spell so it landed on top of him or something. I bet you wish you thought about that to go again, didn't you?
You haven't seen how many magic points I have left.
Oh man. Yeah, okay then. So Hasra informs you not to talk about anything.
What happens if they both double crossed Zoran?
I mean,
That's why.
Well, I've been thinking. So everybody was there before Zoran got there. His food was there. They had probably already eaten. So Zoran comes in. They poison him. He falls down. But then they both go for the map. And that's when it gets torn in half. And not knowing what to do, Fineal then runs out.
But it was cleanly ripped.
I thought Tobias just told us that the map ran the map in half and gave him half and half hidden secrets.
How about this, where my theory is that maybe Tobias stole the map, Zoran, and maybe Fineal was the original partner in this, who has her half the map, because we know she didn't have time to pick the map from the body after the poisoning, and she has a half already, doesn't she? She showed you it apparently. So if she had her half, didn't have time to get the half off. Yes. So Tobias must have taken it off the dead body.
I think
Other half.
we should meet with Zoran's. Not Zoran.
He's dead.
I think we should meet with Tobias now, and then await the summons of Fineal, and then see what she says of the story from her side in full, and then make the judgment of who we think is telling the truth.
Yes. But then once we've made our judgment,
I've already made my judgment. We're being played by both of them. I was right about Ben all that time. He took the seed in the end.
No, he didn't take the seed. The seed was given to him.
He's protecting it.
Yeah, he did not take the seed.
So what you're suggesting, Gulliver, is we kill them both and take them up?
Bartleby nearly has palpitations.
I don't think that's the right move in this situation, Hasra. I think maybe we help one against the other, but not kill both.
No, we need to get them up and the treasure.
And support the person who's doing the truth to get to the treasure.
But we need the treasure as well to help Bartleby. Otherwise, he will fade into nothing as his life force is slowly sucked.
Help Bartleby or help the world.
I think.
I thought it was we needed to get all the things. I mean, yes, help me, but help the world.
I thought it was help Bartleby, help the world.
It depends which order you want to put it in.
And meet a dragon is in there.
I think if we could somehow get one half of the map for whichever side. So if we side with Fineal, if we could get Tobias' half of the map, then we could make a bargain with Fineal and say we would like to become partners as we have half the map, and we will take some of the treasure and you take the other parts of the treasure. Or we could do the same thing with Tobias.
I think
might work.
I think it's pretty obvious that we don't really know who to trust. And at the moment, the only thing that we have is that Tobias has offered to show us part of the map, so we might as well see what we can find out from his part of the map.
I believe Fineal is sending her contacts to meet us as well.
She was going to summon us to a secret meeting, and we could probably see the other half of the map.
I'm not wise in these things, but do you have any magical means of maybe remembering the map if you are shown it once, or being able to draw it perhaps from memory?
Not really.
Wrong character. You should have Peabody with you. Peabody could have done it, I tell you.
It would have taken him a couple of hours, though.
Yeah.
No, I think we should meet with both, see who's telling the truth or not, and make that decision of who we're going to support.
I agree. It just seems, like you say, very strange that if Fineal never had a piece of the map, how did she get her map so fast? Or did she steal it from the house?
Unless Tobias is lying to us.
How big was this map that you saw?
It was sort of like one piece of parchment that was torn in half, so it would have been about that from top to bottom and that wide. It wasn't like an ordnance survey map.
Was it folded up or was it just
no? She had folded it up. If you remember, she had carefully unfolded it, but it didn't look like it had been folded up professionally, like somebody like Sylvester would have done it. Well, Sylvester actually wouldn't have folded it.
Rolled it.
He would have rolled it, because maps should be rolled, because otherwise, if there's a crease, it can actually make the landmark almost like disappear.
Yeah. So if it was folded, it could have been in his pocket and she could have taken it, or it could. What I'm trying to work out is whether if it's big enough for him to have on his body, or would it be in the house? So anyway, forget about it.
It may be important to see if both of the maps are folded. Then that would indicate that they're both folded, possibly originally folded. I suppose once it's time for us.
Why are we worried if the map was folded or not?
No, what I was trying to find out was if it was concealed on his body or whether it was concealed in his house, to eliminate whether she took it off his body or whether she took it from his house. If it's rolled rather than folded, it wouldn't have fit in his pockets properly, would it?
Unless she's just folded it after retrieving it to hide it on her body.
And
Suppose.
the map could have been out on the table
Oh,
for supper.
But then why would she fold it instead of just taking it in the whole roll and taking it to where she's got to?
yeah.
Maybe she just folded it to secrete it over her person.
I think I say we meet with Tobias.
Yes, and in the meantime, wait for Fineal's person to contact us.
Yeah, I'm done with my snake and potatoes soup, so if it's... Do you think it's been about enough time for him to do whatever business he was supposedly getting up to?
We can head over to his house anyway.
I think
We'll probably be out in early.
you can head over.
Do we know where Zavan lived?
We visited his house.
Yeah,
We did stand outside his house for a while, Gully.
I think it was this one, was it?
Think so. That's where we lost our
Yeah.
money.
Yes.
It looked locked up when we went there,
Oh,
though.
that's it. We couldn't get in.
Correct. Yeah, it was all locked up.
Not ransacked on the outside, at least.
No.
Suggesting someone had a key to get inside.
Maybe that's what. Maybe that's what was taken from his person.
Why don't we go and see if it's been ransacked now, or just he maybe?
I think there'd be too many people around now, Hasra.
As there was this
Very
morning.
busy. It's market day.
Yeah, the streets are very busy. Yeah. Are you heading towards Tobias's house?
I think that's a good call.
Yeah.
To go to the Rand's house, Tobias's house. Hengist says as he drains his tankard of mead.
Yeah. Cool.
Sets it on the table.
Yeah, so you sort of like head back out round to Tobias' house, and the first thing you all notice as you leave again is that there's definitely a group of urchins on the opposite side of the street to the copper kettle, sort of like sat in the shade and sort of like holding out their hands, asking for money from passers-by, and used to sort of like walk down to Tobias's house. And just as you get there, you make good in plenty of time, and as you approach the house, you see him coming down the corridor, the alleyway from the marketplace, and he sort of says, "Gentlemen, let's get out of this environment and let's enjoy some decent food. You'll be pleased to know, Master Gulliver, I have actually been able to purchase something that you might very much enjoy." And he seems to have something wrapped up in a piece of muslin in his hand that is sort of like flat, like a flattened oval shape. And he ushers you into his house and sort of like lays down and produces wine and freshly baked bread and what appears to be, Gulliver, some kind of quite soft and slightly matured cheese, something that you haven't had before, but certainly looks rather nice.
Gulliver gets really excited about the cheese, and he sort of like says, "Wait, where did you find this, Tobias?"
Would you believe I bought it from a merchant from Sildar? Apparently, that comes from cows.
Cow.
Although, Master Gulliver, I am not too sure from which orifice. So please, beware.
I'm sure it'd be tasty no matter where it comes from. Gulliver's going to get his knife out of his belt and start cutting some up too.
Yeah, it's a bit like it's almost like Philadelphia cheese. It's a soft cheese spread. It's very clumsy, crumbly, a bit like Wensleydale, but a little like Bosun. You know that Bosun cheese that you get that's wrapped up in silver foil that has a hint of garlic in it.
Oh right, yeah.
Goat's cheese? No.
So
Right,
so you all settle down, and he sort of like looks at you all, and he says, "So, would you like to see my half of the map?"
Oh, yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, and he brings out from in the folds of his tunic a rolled up piece of parchment that seems to have like a bit of a ribbon holding it in place, and he brings it out up, and he slowly unfolds it onto the table, and you see the following. Now, at this point, hang on, you can't see it at the moment. At this point, he does not allow you to touch it. If anybody goes anywhere near it, he almost like pulls it away, and he announces before you get before he unfurls it. He sort of like says, "Remember, the nature of this map is old, and it is quite fragile in places, so please, no touching." And he unfolds it.
Does it look old?
You can. I think you should be able to see it now.
I can't.
I can still see Advent at the moment.
I got Advent.
Well, he's making sure we don't get cheese all over his map.
Have you?
And breadcrumbs.
Have you looked in your handout section?
Monster, Citadel, Amulet, Look Points. Yeah, not in there.
Still got the mysterious note, though.
I have Mysterious Note. I have Circle Entrance. There you go.
Oh, and on it's just come up now.
Oh, Tobias portion of the map. Oh, I know where that is.
Is the gray part the ripped away?
Yeah. So the white part is what he's got, and I've just shown you the important bit of the map. So it goes up and down the other way, if that makes sense, to the following corners, but there's nothing actually on either. The only bit is in that center of the map. So can you see sort of like there seems to be a river that just sort of like stops. It literally does stop, and the rest of the map is blank. It's almost as if they started to create something and in the middle of the map and then stopped near the outside. They haven't sort of like completely finished it off. I'm just going to show you, just while you've got that up as well, I'm just going to move you to this map. Can you see that map now?
Yeah.
So that's roughly where you are, so you can now make a comparison to the two maps.
Would this be in the wilds?
Well, Tobias says, this is somewhat of a mystery, but apparently I now know, thanks to my friend Ark, where that, and he points to the looks like a boulder with a hole in it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see it? He points to that and says, my friend Ark has located that landscape mark.
Does that mean you don't need to find Fineal anymore then?
Well, as you can see, the map is only half complete. What happens after those tents, we have no idea. There seems to be somewhat of a dotted path leading the way, but after that, which way does it turn? Does it turn northwards or northeast or even south again or southwest or the southeast? We have no way of knowing. Without the other half of the map, we are somewhat at a loss.
Hmm.
Yeah, we are indeed.
He folds up the paper again, and it's just sort of like disappears from your view, and he pops it away, and he says, he sort of like looks at you all in turn, and he says, I think Zoran suspected treachery.
Why do you think he suspected that?
Well, he told me to stay alert and to keep the piece of the map safe.
Why don't you just team up with Fineal and both go and find the treasure?
Once a murderer, always a murderer. Do you think it's wise if we team up? If that is the plan, my fellow adventurers, he says after a pause, then I do know that Zoran was planning on hiring you to accompany us on this trip. And I was wondering, maybe you could still come and almost like keep me safe.
It seems to me, Tobias, that this is very nice cheese, by the way. But it seems to me that you both kind of need each other, because you both have half of the map.
Oh, Master Gulliver, you are most wise for one of such a young age. I see your cleverness. I agree, but would it be safe for us to team up with her?
Well, we could maybe act as actors, almost like, what's the word I'm looking for, Bartleby?
Clergy.
No, I don't think that was it.
The shepherd.
Chaperone. That's it. Chaperones.
I am willing to pay you. You know, Fineal is a tough little thief, and is obviously very much aware and wanting the treasure for herself.
But surely there'd be enough treasure to go round. If this Hessaret was such a plunderer, as the stories say, won't there be gold, there'd be silver, there'd be goblets and gems and fine stones?
Again, you amaze me, Master Gulliver, with your intellect and your mathematical prowess. However, dividing a treasure between two people means you would get a lot more than dividing it between 4 people. You realise that he's talking about Fineal and Loram and Tobias and Ark when he says the 2 and the 4. Tell me, how much will your services, shall I say, cost? I am a fair merchant. I'm willing to pay for your services. As we journeyed, following the map to locate and possibly plunder Hessaret's treasure, what would be your going rate?
It's very hard to put a price on that, Tobias, because we've no idea how long it's going to take. We don't no idea what we're going to find along the road. We've there's so many.
You are a clever man, Gulliver. You notice, Gulliver, that not very many people actually call you a man. You are a clever man. and your knowledge and your high thinking skills amaze me. You are such a young age, and yet you possess the mental acuity of an old wise sage I once knew that inhabited a long-lost town.
And of course, we don't even know whether or not we'll find a treasure at all.
I propose we work on percentages then.
How about...
I suggest a 3-way split. Fineal is bound to go for that. 1/3 to myself and Ark. 1/3 Fineal can have, since she is bringing a part of a map, and the 1/3 to you good people as our protectors across in the wilderness.
But wasn't that the original deal? Why would Fineal go for that if she's already killed once? To make a better deal for herself.
Poor stepman, poor Hasra, you need to take notice of the quick thinking Gulliver here, because without my part of the map, the amount of treasure she has is 0.
I agree, because these maps are just squiggly lines to me. I do not understand them. But
So,
I will follow what Gulliver goes with.
So, do we have a deal?
I think if Fineal will go for it, I think it's probably our best course of action. Although
Great news, my friends! A toast, I think, to our newfound friendship. And he sort of like makes sure that everybody's goblet is sort of like filled up with fresh wine. And he sort of like calls out, Ark, do join us. And there's sort of like if you remember, he's a huge like wild hillman, sort of like comes in with scraggly hair, and he sort of like picks up a goblet that Tobias has poured wine into him, and it almost like looks like a thimble in his huge hand as he picks it up. And Fineal sort of like Tobias stands up, and you all sort of like quickly stand up again, and he says, to our newfound friendship, one and all.
Hasra's going to pretend to drink but not drink, so he'll raise it to his lips and make the motion, but then dip down again.
Sure. And somebody says, I will take the ring, but I know not the way. And he sort of like says, eat. And he sort of like sits down and he sort of like drinks his wine down in one fair swoop and tops it up with the bottle again. And he says, there is only one thing left to do now. If only we knew where Fineal was.
But that's what you've hired us for, Tobias.
And I think that will be a suitable time to take our first 10-minute break of the evening. So we will be back in 10 minutes. So thank you for watching the stream. Go off, stretch your legs, fill up your water, stay hydrated in the heat, especially out if you're with us out in Advent. And we will see you back here.
25th of June, by the way.
At what is?
Last earthquake in Sweden.
Wow.
Not as late as that. We need to be coming back soon.
Yeah, and we will see you in about 10 minutes. See you soon. Yes, and we are back, and yeah, so the party have been busy enjoying the hospitality of Mr. Tobias, and they are now to the point that they have toasted that they are going to be partners. And the last thing that Tobias said was that it is a shame that we do not know where Fineal is. And I think Gulliver, you just stated something. So if we pick it up from that point, then we know that we're all on the same track. So you will just go. If we only knew where Fineal was.
What had I said?
Well, you had said, so if you can't remember, because it was 10 minutes ago, you actually said that is what Tobias has
hired us to do.
Yeah.
So that is what we shall.
This is what we should do then. Okay.
Yeah, and he offers another round of mead or water, and Gulliver, you finish off the cheese. And then eventually about 2 hours later, Tobias excuses himself and heads back outside to head off to the marketplace with Ark in tow. And he sort of like says, he calls back over his shoulder, says, "Once you have found Fineal, and please convince her to join our party. And probably she will request part of the treasure, but you know the deal for that. And suggest a meeting place before we set off on the expedition." And he sort of like leaves you and sort of like leaves the building, and obviously heads back off to market.
Well, the only problem is that what happens if Hessaret's treasure is only one thing?
That thing will have to be hacked into 3 pieces.
Unless, of course, sold, and then the profit would be split.
Unless, of course, that one thing is the thing we need.
I was thinking, how did he know to find us in the inn? It seemed a little fortuitous for him to suddenly turn up and find us there.
It's probably either he or Ark saw us entering.
I think it's also the fact that the urchins are following us all around, and they're probably working for somebody else, Hengist.
There's that as well.
And if they're working for somebody else, they might also be working for Fineal.
Yeah, it would be wise for them to work for the highest payer, wouldn't it?
Fineal seems scared.
She did seem scared, didn't she? Whereas Tobias seems excited.
He's very interested in dividing things up, and the less people, the more the treasure to be split between the lesser parties, rather than, I don't know. He seemed to have not been very concerned about the murder, about more finding the treasure.
I think at the moment we don't have much. We don't have much option. If we can get both parties together involved in going after the treasure, and we can act as intermediates between them, then I think that's our best chance of
getting there. Yeah.
Maybe if they fight, we can just step back and see who wins.
Best chance at mending whatever broken thing happened in their relationship. Let's go find Fineal, guys.
I think we just need to wander around our fence, because she was going to be contacting us. So it's probably wise that, as you say, Bartleby, that we get moving.
Yes, make ourselves visible.
Yes. And stop these situations where I'm forced to not tell the truth.
I think we should. The market might be a good place to start. Seems to be the busiest.
Indeed. Onwards.
So you're heading off to the marketplace, is that the plan?
Yeah, I could do with finding a new sleeve for my broken arm.
Oh, well, you don't need to spend money on that. I'm sure that I could help you out.
Yes, you could.
I want to place my hands on, and you might be guessing what I'm going to do, but I'm just going to send it out anyways. Pray to the goddess of Amriel.
Yeah, just before you roll it, remember you can opt to take time over it. So if you, and I'm just thinking when to do it. So because if you elected to take hours over it rather than minutes or minutes or hours, then it would actually reduce your score from standard to easy, then easy to very easy. If you cast it now, it's going to have to be because you're obviously off and about. So, but if you would like to leave it till later, then that's fine.
And just to stop you, Bartleby, my friend, it's the condition of the item that I'm wearing at the moment. It's fine. It's not damaged in any way. It's just I just want to find something a little bit more in keeping with what I'm wearing.
Oh, I see. I understand. There's another reason to get new things. Onwards to the market in that case.
Okay then, so you all head off to the market, and lo and behold, yes, it is incredibly busy, and there's a strong smell of spices and food that seems to enjoy itself dancing over your nasal hairs as you breathe in the noise and the smell and the atmosphere of the market. There seems to be something of everything that you could ever want to buy here. And as always, the guards are stood around looking quite nonchalant at what's actually happening, while some of them are obviously keeping guard and looking very suspiciously at many of the urchins that are sort of like have taken up positions. One of the most popular places is at the where you can see the well in the corner. Yeah,
we're on the big map.
Are you on the big map? Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, we're on
the well just near to the Shining Hearth Inn, which is number 3. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. So there seems to be a popular place for people to sort of like congregate and sort of exchange stories, and maybe even doing some haggling over items such as livestock, horses and things like that you can't actually do round the actual stall. And you sort of like head over there to get a drink and to freshen up, and it's while you're there that a young girl, she looks about 4 or 5. She's definitely some kind of an urchin, and she walks up and Bartleby, she tugs your robe or cloak or whatever and sort of goes like, you know, tug, and you sort of like look down at her. She looks up and she says, "You have to meet her in the same place as before."
Same place as before?
Yeah. She said, you know, that alleyway.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that alleyway.
She didn't say anything else, but I managed to get a silver coin for telling you that.
Well, that is wonderful that you got a silver coin, but...
It will keep me going for perhaps one more day before my hunger just prizes itself out of my little belly and consumes the rest of me. I am but thin and ill.
Oh, you poor thing. I cannot let myself let you go away.
I shall pat her on the head and say, one more day is all we can ask.
She just sort of like holds her hand out to you, Bartleby, and sort of like looks up at you.
I'm going to put a hand on her head and begin to pray as I put 2 silver coins into her other hand. And I would like to quickly do a throw of this prayer over her existence and a throw of that. I should get over to see my face.
Cool, yeah. It's quite amazing, actually, because Amriel is obviously looking down at you, because even though the spell fails, you feel a sudden wash of Amriel's power through you, and you're sure that some protective aura has gone around the girl, and she sort of like grabs the 2 silver coins from you and says, "Thanks, mister," and goes skipping off down and disappears into the crowd. You think Amriel probably you probably did something that Amriel was quite happy about there.
Excellent.
I'll say to Bartleby, "Bartleby, do you still have your purse?"
I'll just double check real quick.
Yes, you still have. All your belongings are still firmly attached to your body.
Oh, thank God she didn't take my candles.
And
Anyways,
in that case, I think we should start heading our way over to that alleyway.
absolutely. Let's make our way there.
Okay, so is everybody going that way, and is everybody going to the meeting, or do some of you want to do anything different?
No, I think strength in numbers might be better.
Okay, we're all going.
Okay, so you all head over to the place that is like a yellow cross on the map that I marked on that, where you think you met Fineal beforehand. Gulliver, can you just roll your streetwise for me, please? Yeah, you're definitely followed to the location by the urchins in the same way, and you all sort of like head down the alleyway, and it seems to be completely empty. And you get that sudden feeling that the sun's probably gone into a cloud or be covered by a cloud, while behind you, you suddenly notice that Laram almost like appears from the shadows. And as you look back at him, as you turn back round to the front, you see that Fineal is stood before you. She looks somewhat more wary than before, and she talks to you with one hand on the pummel of what appears to be a long dagger. It's definitely not a sword. It's probably more like a long stiletto dagger that's on a belt sheath. She definitely did not have it before.
Hengist is gonna be standing at the back of the party, still with everyone, but at the back of the party, sort of like where I've forgotten his name now.
Loran.
Standing sort of like between the party and Loran.
Yeah, and even as you stand at the back, you, even with all your fighting prowess, you almost like feel quite...
He could have you.
Yeah, quite intimidated by Laram, who is stood there, and he's actually carrying what appears to be... Hang on, I just need to check if he still has it with him at this point.
That's good, because Hengist likes a challenge.
Yeah, he seems to have a great hammer. It looks massive. It looks slightly bigger than Ben used to wield.
Ooh.
And you can certainly see that he's quite heavily built. He seems to be wearing some kind of hard, rigid leather armor in places, and he doesn't look like he would be a pushover at all. So, and he's just sort of like towers above you at the back.
Just before Just before we start, I want to ask Fineal whether just to clarify something. My name is Hasra. Do these urchins that have been following us around, or they work for you, or do they work for Tobias?
She sort of like looks at you quite strangely because she hasn't actually participated in conversation with you at all, because of course the last time she spoke it was to Bartleby and Hengist, and she sort of like ponders looking at you for some time, and in the end she doesn't actually answer the question. She turns round to you, Bartleby, and says, "My friends have informed me that you are now working for Tobias."
We're looking for a way to prevent any more death from occurring. Amriel would frown on any more unnecessary bloodshed. We're hoping that perhaps we can broker a deal for us to work together, all of us. And these are my friends, by the way. We've traveled from across the lands. They're all as trustworthy as I am.
Hello, I'm Gulliver.
Work together to what aim? Or to what end?
I was kind of under the impression that we were all serving Amriel.
I think what my friend Bartleby means is that we're all going to be working together to achieve the same aim of finding the treasure.
Oh. So Tobias has the other half of the map.
It's kind of like 70% by my calculation.
I wondered whether or not he'd been able to prize it away from Zoran.
Could you tell me? I mean, Tobias said Zoran gave him the map.
And you believe that
No.
the word of a coward and a murderer?
I believe nobody until evidence presents itself for the contrary.
You will have a hard and difficult life, my man.
I've already had a hard and difficult life. But, so, Zoran gave you your half of the map. I'm sorry, I wasn't with you during your last meeting. So, how did Tobias find the map? Was it on Zoran's body, or?
I do not know. I was not there.
We've already worked out you had no time to take the map off him.
Are you suggesting that I stole the map from Zoran?
We've already decided that you didn't.
Why insult me by asking whether or not I took it off my friend and a person who I respected almost as my own father?
So I could look into your eyes. As
You
did the
insult
outside.
me.
Oh no. But Bartleby is going to start nervously praying. Tranquility is probably the word you guys hear the most. Falling down upon me. I don't know if that means you guys still have time to act before, or if I can roll it.
You can roll it.
See,
This target, and you do get a resist.
Yeah.
Target is Fineal.
Cool.
Big money this time.
oh my god.
Oh my
Can I spend a luck point to reroll?
Yeah, you certainly can.
Okay, let me get rid of that luck point and I'll
Is it? She resists with willpower, won't she?
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my reroll. Yeah, bring the magic. Got an 18. Which
38. Yeah, you sort of like cast the spell over her. You don't think it actually took hold. You almost like think that she actually resisted it. But one thing that you do notice is that she sort of like shifts her gaze away from Hasra, more to you, Bartleby, and says, "Why are you here?"
Am I all right speaking? The thing is, Fineal, is that you've got part of the map, and you can't do anything without Tobias's part of the map, and Tobias has got part of the map, and he can't do anything without your part of the map. So, and at the moment, neither of you can't do anything about the treasure. So
Tobias has Zoran's part of the map.
but Zoran's now dead.
I suggest we find Tobias alone, and we find a way to dispose of him, so the map will be ours.
Oh, no. We're trying to go for less bloodshed, Fineal. Less.
Do not worry. I know ways where bloodletting will not be profuse.
What does that mean?
I know where to slide my dagger so that the blood loss is kept to a minimum. But death can either be slow or instantaneous.
We approached Tobias with an offer.
And what would that offer be?
The offer was that we would act as intermediates between both you and Tobias, and that together all sort of like 8 of us would go after the treasure, and then once it was found, it would be split between 3, a third for you and Loran, a third for Tobias and Ark, and a third for our part.
What is your role in this new company of adventurers?
Well, our role is to keep both of you from killing each other before you find the treasure.
You are impartial?
Well, if we just want to get paid at the end of the day.
And prevent bloodshed.
Surely Hessaret must have enough treasure for 8 people. A third of it could be yours and Loran's, and a third for Tobias and Ark, and we would get a third. But there's more of us. There's 4 of us, and there's only 2 of you, so we would get less than you would.
She seems to be thinking, and she seems to be pondering something, and then she looks at you and says, she looks at you all as a group, and sort of like her gaze passes from one to the other as she sort of like fixes it on each one of you, and then she turns to you all and she poses a question, and she says, "Are you working for Tobias?"
No.
Could you roll your willpower?
I was going to say I was working for his,
Who's rolling it?
You, because you answered. Yeah, she turns to you and says, "Good. I would hate to think that you are actually working for him."
But there's one other thing. We're not working for you either.
I do not need protection. Loran will protect me from that murderous crow of Tobias. Tell me, when do we leave?
That hasn't been decided yet, but I would have thought it's best to leave as soon as possible. we first have to tell Tobias that you've agreed to our plan, and that you're happy to join forces, and at least until the treasure is found.
I propose we meet at sunrise at the Advent Bridge tomorrow.
Well, no offense, but if we go to Tobias and tell him that, then he's going to think that you're in charge. How can we contact you, and we will come up with a meeting place and a time, and we will take it from there.
Those are my conditions. And to show how trustworthy I am, you need to be aware that the Advent Bridge is in open countryside. There is no place to hide. There is no place to stage an ambush. The river is too fast flowing underneath. It is a safe place. But in order to show my commitment to this expedition, I would like to share with you this. And she unfolds what appears to be a map, and she holds it out in front of her, so that you are able to see it.
Oh, I spelled her name wrong.
Oh, I did as well. I missed it. I put an I instead of any. I mean, any, yeah, instead of any.
Yeah, so that's what you see, and you figure that this would fit quite nicely onto the other piece of the map. The edges might not be completely perfect, but you think it's definitely a match. And you remember the wigwam symbol, and it seems to have corresponded with the map. And she turns around to you as she folds it up and says, "So, sunrise, tomorrow, Advent Bridge."
We'll do our best.
And she, I've just put you onto the big map.
Okay.
And she sort of like nods at you. And then she makes a quick sort of like noise, and Laram slowly lumbers off into the out of the alleyway and mingles in with the people walking up and down the street. And Fineal scales the wall quite effectively, and just while she's almost like hanging onto a roof tile up at the top, she turns around and she looks down at you and she says, "And stop giving my friends money. They only spend it on alcohol." And then with a skip, she jumps and disappears over the rooftops.
That little girl was drinking alcohol?
No, she wasn't. She
Until
is
you-
now.
Well, it's good I gave her the protection of Amriel.
Hopefully it will stave off the effects of the alcohol for some time on that little girl.
So, a cheap ale is 1 silver piece. Looks like she's going to, or she can have a spirits or wine for 2.
And you gave her 2.
Fineal scares me.
I mean, we can always say to Tobias that it's our idea to meet at the bridge at sunset.
So this is where Advent Bridge is.
Oh, we crossed that.
Yeah, you did.
As it is, as Fineal did announce, it is as good a place as any to meet. There's no one can be snuck up on.
That is very true.
Doesn't mean she's still scared. She doesn't scare me with that that long dagger and the comment about blood.
Is this a dagger I see before me?
Oh, it's just my pencil.
Bit of culture there.
Good bit of Macbeth. I think.
I mean, we've seen both parts of the map now, and it's.
Yeah, let's us go. Stuff them all, says Gulliver.
I think if we're going to be leaving in the morning, we should probably stock up on our provisions. We don't know how long we're going to be travelling for.
I think the first thing to do is to talk to Tobias and say that we've spoken to Fineal and she's agreed.
Yeah, you can arrange that. That's not a problem. You'll probably find Tobias on his market stall or somewhere in the marketplace, busy selling goods. And when you tell him what's going on, he seems quite happy, if not somewhat perturbed by the whole business. But when you mention that you will meet at the Advent Bridge, and he sort of like congratulates you in a very positive way and sort of like comments on a good meeting place. It's free of ambushes, and the river is far too fast flowing under the bridge for anybody to hide, and the open countryside means that you can be seen from miles away. So he sort of like congratulates you, and sort of like whoever tells him, he sort of like says, "You are very strategic. I am impressed with your prowess."
Gulliver's going to say, "And had you started to get together provisions for the journey to recover the treasure?"
"We are all ready to go, but I suggest that you spend the rest of the afternoon and evening. Will you be lodging at my house tonight?"
No, I think it's probably best if we find lodgings elsewhere, just so that we remain impartial. It wouldn't look good if.
I'm sure Piggins will put you up for the night. I will send word to him and let you have some shared room there. Please prepare yourself. It might be a long journey, possibly a week, maybe 2. According, we have no scale on the maps. It could take us some time. We are in the wilderness, so we might be able to get food on the way. However, you never know what might be out there, so please come prepared. Remember, you are my protectors. And then somebody says, "Excuse me, sir, how much is this silk?" And he says, "Oh, my good lady, this silk is the finest you've ever seen." And he sort of like leads you to it. So just for equipping your character, if you look at the source book, there you can buy anything that is cheap. Okay, you can't. Advent is not the sort of town that has reasonable things available. They're generally quite cheap. Please remember that if you're carrying anything, you need to put it onto your encumbrance list, because encumbrance will impact on you. You have your various coinage, so this is a time equip as a party rather than as individuals. For example, it might not be wise for everybody to be carrying 50 foot of hemp rope around, or it might be that you want to divvy things up. I don't know whether or not you have enough for beast of burden. There is riding horses available, but they're only of poor quality, so about 1,500 silver coins if you've got that amount of money. Apart from that, you can buy a goat for 25 if you wish, but you can't ride it, no matter how small you think you are. Okay, so yeah, is there anything that you would like to equip your characters with? And if you let me know what you want, then we can. You've got 2 merchants in your party, I think, or maybe 3, who have a commerce skill. So that will be used to reduce the overall price. So if you want to just buy all yourself, then that's absolutely fine. You can just take off the price. If not, put it all together for a price, and then the commerce people can roll and to see whether or not they gain it cheaper.
Yeah. So the only thing that Gulliver wants to buy is 2 weeks of cheap trail rations.
Yeah, cool.
Which will be a total of 14.
14 silver.
Yeah.
Bartleby will also go in on some cheap trail rations. I don't want to get scurvy.
So this is 2 weeks, yeah?
Yeah.
So how many people are buying? It's 7 silver, isn't it?
7 silver per week for
Yeah.
cheap.
So how many people are buying trail rations?
Probably all of
Me
us.
too. Everybody, I would have thought.
Okay then. So that will be 4 lots of that, which comes to 28 silver pieces.
And then he'll fill up his water skin before they set out.
I was going to say we can do that from the well, can't we?
Yeah, you can fill up water skins.
What about torches? Do we need torches?
Hasra still has his lantern and he still has an oil flask.
And I have a
He's got a torch as well,
a
sorry.
single torch.
I probably need to restock my candles, and it'd be nice to get some from around Advent if I can find any.
Yeah, so candles are 1
You want
silver
an
piece.
advent candle?
Ching!
Do you have advent candles in America?
It sounds familiar,
Yeah,
but
so, do you have Advent, the lead up to Christmas?
Yeah.
No, they don't I don't think they have Christmas in America.
No, I heard
They
it
have
was
Thanksgiving, don't they?
Well, they have Christmas and Thanksgiving. I think is this
Can you
Thanksgiving?
let Mr. Pickles answer
Yeah,
whether
sorry.
he has an advent
He knows
calendar?
nothing about America.
yeah, I've heard of Advent calendars where you open up the little windows each day of December.
Yeah, well, we also have an advent candle, which is marked with 25 days, and you're supposed to
Oh.
burn it per, for sort of like to go down to the next day per.
Unless you're like me and you forget, so you end up burning 4 days worth.
Yeah.
In like any...
And it normally burns so slowly that you leave it on for a week and you're down to, December the 2nd.
Well, it's normally such a big candle that it just melts down in the middle and the edges.
It does, that is true, yeah.
And each part of the candle has a little bit of heroin in it, so just don't ask.
That's what makes it so fun and illegal over here.
So candles burn for 6 hours, and they are 1 silver piece and 1 unit of encumbrance.
I generally keep my inventory set at 5 candles on stock, and I'm guessing just arbitrarily that I've probably spent about 3 candles on this trip so far.
Yeah, that's absolutely
So
fine.
3 candles on the order for Bartleby.
Do we need any rope? Has anyone got?
I
some-
have 10 meters of rope.
That's probably everything that we need then, unless anyone can think of anything else.
A pole, a sturdy pole,
10-foot pole.
10-foot pole. Yeah, is that?
It comes in 3 meters.
Surely
It's a 3-meter
that's-
pole. Remember,
that's-
Mythras is actually metric. So yeah.
Ah,
We could always use Hasra's spear for that.
is it? How long is Hasra's spear?
Spear length.
That's a personal question.
I heard it was a short spear.
Mm.
I'm not making a joke.
I think it is, yeah.
It's a short spear, yeah. Just medium length. It's average.
I mean, would it be good to have a long spear on hand for if? I mean, Amriel forbid we have another ogre come our way and we don't have a bevy of guards to protect us.
Then
No,
we run fast.
I'm quite happy with my short spear. I mean, I use it to incapacitate or disable an enemy. So
I just want to be prepared in case an elephant or an ogre comes trampling our way.
I like the extremes of that. An elephant or an ogre. And anything in between.
Well, I mean, the maps that we saw, the etchings look potentially, I don't know.
I tend to find that the fighting style with the long spear and a short spear are completely different, and I was trained all my life for the short spear.
Okay, well, that's fair enough. I just want to make sure we have bases covered.
If you want to get a big stick to poke at something, by all means, there are plenty in the trees, I think.
Would anyone know how to use snares or traps?
I have some game snares and traps on me already.
Oh, brilliant! So we can always ask you to lay them for fresh food.
I can trap myself, no problem.
Oh, do we have any glass vials or small, maybe like leather flasks to hold a small amount of liquid?
You can buy oil flasks for 1 silver piece.
But otherwise, we don't have any small containers.
No.
Do they have any glass vials here? Or is that...
Yeah, I mean, it's not glass, it's sort of like a metal flask, almost like a hip flask, that you can purchase if you wish.
Would a single one be about 1 encumbrance?
It certainly is. Exactly 1.
Do we have a way to the trail rations? I'm trying to look and I can't see anything.
I put them down as 1.
There's 1, right?
They are 1, I think.
1 per thing, so 2 in total. If you have 1 per 7 days, I put it down as.
Yeah, that is correct. One point of encumbrance, do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What are you after, Bartleby?
I'm just thinking in case we find anything that we may want to take a sample of. Or
There is a glass bottle or an earthenware bottle, which is 2 silver pieces, if you would prefer to buy one of those.
I would prefer glass, but I'm just double checking my backpack to make sure that I could maybe fit something a little bit heavier in there, because I kind of just pack generally the same so that I can...
So your backpack holds up to 20 encumbrance.
Oh, I meant more of my actual spinal cord, if I can actually be carried. But I'm thinking I want to get one of those. Let's just double check. Okay, I think I can carry one. Yeah, I'll buy one of the glass bottles so that we can take.
Yep, cool. That's two silver pieces for that.
Do we
I'm
need?
just paying full price, I guess.
Yeah.
Do any of us have any more bits of first aid kits, bandages and ointments and those sorts of things?
I have a healer's kit,
Okay.
but I prefer miracles to happen.
We all know that you do prefer Amriel's blessings, but
I have a first aid kit.
just in case.
I've got 8 left in my first aid kit, 8 uses.
That's about all I will need, because I feel like if I get one of the goats, then we're going to be eating that goat at some point. That's going to break my heart.
Okay, do you... let's have some commerce rolls to see whether or not you can reduce some of your price from this. You can probably team test with them if you prefer. Or you can do them individually, or the person with the biggest one can actually roll it for the whole party. It's up to you.
What have you got, Bartleby?
I got a 42 in commerce. I'm okay. I'm not quite at a professional level.
Okay, what was it? 10% did we get?
Yeah, it's twice your critical if the person is successful.
Right. So what's?
So
That's your critical.
I'll roll it because mine's higher.
okay.
Okay.
So
Criticals are 20% of your skill.
Okay, so what's your...
My Hurricane. 42. So it would be give you a 5.
9, would it?
9. Oh, and then double it. Yeah. So that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
9. Okay, so 63 we're looking at as the...
Okay, cool.
No.
Do you wish to look it?
No.
No. Okay then. Okay, so you head back up to obviously the
It's market day. Everybody's going to be charging.
Yeah, and it's quite late in the day, and so people are actually haggling wells, and you sort of like get in the last little bits of things before they head off, and you head back to Tobias's house, where he provides you with some kind of evening meal before instructing you to go off to the Wild Wyvern and spending the night in your shared rooms. And your night sleep is interesting. Can you each roll for me in the chat, please, a 1d6? Okay, just roll a 1d6.
Yeah, big 2.
Okay then. So Bartleby and Hengist, you actually have somewhat of a restless night. You find it really hard to actually get off to sleep to start off with, and then you find that you are woken up several times throughout the night, and each time you wake up thinking that something had disturbed you, but when you look around the place, there's nothing actually there, and you find it really difficult to sort of like almost like cross that boundary into sleep. And then all of a sudden you literally drop off, but you have one of those very lucid dreams when you actually think it's real, and actually, you know, you actually think, is it that sort of dream that all of a sudden you wake up and you thought you were already awake in the dream. And you both dream this separately, and of course you won't know what the other person has dreamt unless you share it at one point. And of course Gulliver and Hasra, you just sleep through, not a problem at all. If anything, you have quite a good night's sleep. And Bartleby and Hengist, you have this dream that you appear to be walking through it's not a forest, it's almost like a glade. So there's not thick trees around the place, but there are trees there, but the canopy is not quite touching, so there's shafts of light coming down, and you sort of like walking along, and you sort of like look down, and you see that you're sort of like wearing like tunic and breeches. You know, you don't seem to be in armor, you don't seem to be in your adventuring gear at all. And when you look down, you actually notice that you've got nothing on your feet at all, and you can feel the grass, the soft ground underneath your feet, and it's so cushioned that it just sort of like sinks slightly, and you just seem to be walking and walking. And you can hear the birds around you, and you can also smell almost like honeysuckle and fresh grass, and the sun seems to be sort of like beating down on you, and you sort of like you seem so peaceful and relaxing, and you carry on walking for a little while. And until you come within the glade, there seems to be a pool, and it's a pool. although it's a pool of water, you think it's probably more like a spring, because water seems to be not bubbling, just sort of like arriving from the middle and flowing outwards. It's not speedy, it's not aggressive, it's not violent. It seems so smooth as it just sort of like moves out. And you notice that there's stones, like small boulders round the pool, and you actually arrive and you sit on it, on a boulder, and you put your feet into the cool water. And it's at that point that you sort of like look to one side and you actually see each other. You know, Hengist, you see Bartleby to your right, and Bartleby, you see Hengist to your left, and you just sort of like smile and sort of like enjoying the peacefulness. And then all of a sudden you hear a voice behind you, and you turn round and you see Cassandra stood there, and you suddenly remember instantly about meeting her on the road, and you suddenly think, oh yeah, I remember that. And you sort of like, you wave at her and sort of say, you hear both of you sort of like saying, hi Cassandra, hi. And she looks at you both, and she looks and frowns at you, and she says, you're not meant to be here yet. And all of a sudden you fall into that deep sleep that is blackness, and the next thing you hear is the sounds of the morning birds, and you sort of like wake up and you remember some parts of the dream. You remember the glade, you remember walking past, you remember seeing each other and almost like acknowledging each other at the pool. And you also remember greeting somebody else. But even when you try to think about it, the memory just seems to be dissipating. And by the time you wake up and you've got dressed and ready to set out onto the adventure, you suddenly think, it was so nice that Hengist, or so nice that Bartleby was in my dream with me. And you've totally and utterly forgotten that there was somebody else there. So you wake up, everybody wakes up, and you go down, and you Piggins has made you some hearty breakfast of mead and bread, and the bread is still warm. It's quite nice. It's freshly baked, and he's got your trail rations ready for you. And you head out, gathering your stuff. You move out to the bridge, where you are meant to meet the rest of your company, which is here. This is where Advent Bridge is.
Sorry, can I just roll back a little bit?
Yeah.
So whilst Hengist was eating his breakfast, he would have been every so often he would have been glancing towards Bartleby with a slightly confused, puzzled, but embarrassed expression, because he doesn't normally dream of the sort of thing that happened in other people. So he keeps sort of like glancing over at Bartleby, wanting to make eye contact, but as soon as Bartleby looks up from his food, he sort of like looks away.
Yeah. Cool.
And then purposely like strikes up a conversation with Gully or Hasra or something. But then during the walk towards the bridge, he's gonna pluck up the courage to sort of walk next to Bartleby, and he'll talk about the fact that he had a dream last night and walking through a glade and all that sort of stuff, and that he remembers seeing, and he saw Bartleby in the dream, and we greeted each other and that sort of thing.
Oh, Hengist, sometimes dreams are just dreams. Sometimes they speak of prophecies, sometimes they show the future, and sometimes It's just kind of like a thank you. Weird. Do you have the urge to walk barefoot today? I guess the ground looks so spongy and soft.
Not particularly, but obviously I did last night.
Last night.
Oh, in my dream. I don't normally go barefoot. I haven't gone barefoot for years. I did in my dreams, so maybe.
Maybe.
As you approach the bridge, you notice that there's two people there already. Tobias is there. He's sat saddled onto a horse. He's wearing some kind of metal breastplate, and he has a helmet as well, sort of like hanging off the side of his saddle. He seems to have like quilted armor everywhere else, and you notice that he has with him, he has what appears to be a short sword and a buckler. The buckler is attached to his left arm. The sword is on his left hip. He seems to have a dagger on his right hip, and he also seems to have almost like a short bow across his back, not stringed, but carrying it there. And Ark is there as well. He's not on a horse. He just stands next to Tobias. He's actually wearing a full bear skin over it, and the head of the bear is actually been almost like the skin is still there, and he's got it over his actual head. So where the muzzle would be sort of like here, where the teeth would be, and you can see the eyes are sort of like gazing out, and he's just wearing it. He seems to have quite a plethora of weapons. He seems to have daggers on his belt. He seems to have a hatchet on his belt. He has what appears to be a battle axe across his back, and he has a spear that's quite long, and it's sort of like stood next to him, and he's almost like holding it like as if he's on guard. And Tobias and is just sort of like so, and even Ark, as he stands there, he almost like comes level with the top of the horse. He looks very formidable, and has his long straggly hair, and apart from his bear skin wrapped around him, that's the only armor he's wearing. And Tobias greets you all, and he says, "Oh," he says, "I didn't think you would be here this early, but welcome. Are we all prepared for the long journey?"
Yes, I think we have what we need. We just need Fineal and Lavan to get here, and then we're ready.
I see you would be walking. Don't worry. I can go slower. You're probably not used to such a fine steed as I have here.
It is a very nice animal, and Gulliver's going to pat it on the side.
I just love one of Tobias's passions, which is self-importance. He actually has a skill in self-importance. And he sort of like says, "Don't worry, we'll be able to make good time with you on foot." And he says, "Oh, look, our friends arrive." And you can see coming along the path on foot comes Fineal and Laram. Laram you see quite substantially. He's still got his great war hammer out, and he's sort of like, he's also got like 3 javelins, or 2 javelins across his back, ready to fly, let loose if need be. He also seems to have some kind of rigid leather armor on now, which is protecting everywhere, and he seems to have a almost like a thick leather skull cap over his head. Fineal arrives walking, and she sort of like swaggers down. She's very confident as she walks and very purposeful, and she's managing to swing her hips just enough to give off the essence of seduction without being slutty with it as she moves. She's kitted out in quilted armour from head to foot, although there's nothing on her head. Her hair is free, and she as well seems to have things like daggers. She has a stiletto dagger that you saw before. She also has a short sword on the other hip, and what appears to be a short bow across her back with a quiver of arrows as well. And she sort of like approaches, and she sort of like looks round, and Laram is just sort of like slightly off to her left, probably not too close to intimidate her or get in her way, but close enough to step in if need be. And Fineal sort of like looks around and says to you people, she says, "Gentlemen," and then she turns to Tobias and says, "Tobias, and your protector, I guess. Nice to see you again, Ark." Ark sort of goes like that, and Tobias says, "Oh, Fineal, please, I cannot stand this atmosphere for the whole of the journey. We have made a pact, a truce. We are all," and he sort of like gestures to you all, including you as the party. "We are all in this together. Please, let's try to make it as friendly or as bearable as possible."
Perhaps we should just get going and make best use of the days we can. I think from the maps there's a long way to travel.
Fineal turns around and says, "The boy is right. Let's go. Fineal, please. He is a man of great mental acuity and prowess. Do not belittle him by calling him a boy." And she
Did you hear that, Hengist?
She sort of like says, you son of a," and she reaches for her dagger with her hand, and you notice that Laram the sort of like hefts his great hammer into more of a sort of like a defensive or aggressive pose.
I think we should all take a deep breath and step back.
Let it go.
We don't want to start doing this before we've even begun our journey.
Fineal says, "Don't worry. If he starts anything, we will be the ones who will be finishing it." And
This is going to be so much fun.
She lets the corner of her mouth just sort of like come up in a slight smirk. And
You notice that Hengist said this with his hand on the hilt of his sword as well, looking at squaring off both parties.
yeah, and as she sort of like smirks, Tobias sort of like readjusts himself in the saddle, and he sort of like says, "I suggest we start off this journey as we meet to go on. Let's have a toast." And he sort of like picks up a wine skin from the side of his saddle, and he pops the cork on it, and he says, "To the company," and then takes a swig and hands it to Ark, who sort of goes, "Ugh," and says nothing. And he says, "Will anybody join me in the toast?"
I prefer not to have a drink this time in the morning, but I will, in spirit, raise my hand and wave at you.
"I understand completely. The spirits at this time in the morning are made for real men like myself."
I don't actually touch alcohol at all.
No,
It
you
makes
do that
me
well.
sick.
Your mental acuity needs to be as strong as a knife's blade.
No, it makes me sick.
And he sort of like takes another swig and says, "Onward, people! Let's make headway, and let's soon find Hessaret's treasure." And leading the way, he sort of like heads off along the path, along the road that's virtually travelling eastward, along away from the bridge. He seems to take the lead with Ark in front of him, and he encourages you guys to be in the middle, with Fineal bringing up the rear with Laram. It's quite. It seems like there needs to be as much space as possible in between them, especially at this part of the journey. Now you carry on to the second bridge that you can see on your map. And at this second bridge, you actually cross over it, but then start travelling, following the bridge, following the river. Sorry, you follow it down on the southern edge of it, and you go through and you travel some distance, and pretty soon you can actually see something down at the far side of the river, sort of like around about here, and there stands a mighty. It's a huge. When I say huge, it's like 5 meters high and 3 meters across, and it's like a grey pinky rock, and it's roughly. It looks roughly like. I don't know how to describe it apart from like a giant potato stood on one end. So it's not sort of like, it looks like it's been placed there. It looks almost like a monolith, like a sandstone monolith. And as you get closer and closer and closer to it, you notice that there's a huge hole that's been bored out of it and sort of like smoothed around, and you can see that it's almost like as the wind continues to go through this, it's almost like edged it away, and as you get closer and closer to it, you decide, your feet are starting to ache and it's probably time for lunch, and you settle down and they get off the horses and they water the horse, and Tobias sort of like brings out his map and sort of like pops it on the floor, and you notice that Fineal takes a real good look at it. But Tobias doesn't look perturbed by it and sort of like holds it out, and then you all gather round, and he says, "Right," he says, "you can probably see where we are on the map."
Yes, it's that big jutting out.
Yes, my faithful henchman here, Ark, found it some days ago, before the unfortunate demise of Zorand, and he sort of like flashes a look at Fineal, who sort of like just frowns at him, and slowly you see her hand going over to that stiletto hilt again. He says, "It seems at this point we need to head to the east."
That's what it looks like. The map says until we reach part of the. Is it a forest?
Oh, I know there are various marshlands around here.
There's a skull.
Yes, Master Bartleby, I am somewhat perturbed by that. There seems to be a skull and some great hands and what appears to be some kind of spirit.
That doesn't.
We don't want to mess with spirits.
And yet the pathway looks like it follows quite close to them, ending in a... Do you think that's a camp?
It looks like it, but...
Master Hasra, you are a man of the wilderness. Would it be possible to track that path through the marshland?
I would have thought so, but I mean, I cannot read maps. So once we're on the trail, I would like to think I could follow the trail to the best of my abilities.
We will look for you then. You will guide us safely through the marshland at that point. Although we have still some time to go. And look, and he sort of like points out across the wilderness, the terrain will not be as easy as it has been to this point. You notice that the land undulates a lot more now. It's more prairie, and it's a lot more. There seems to be less vegetation, and it looks like the sun will be beating down on you as you progress through it. Well, he says, I guess we better make headway.
I suppose so.
Why do we have to follow the trail, though?
You know a different route to the treasure?
Well, I was just thinking that we know where we want to be. Can we not just cut across land and save time?
We could. I only know to follow the trail. I am not aware what would be on either side. But if you think it is a good place, a good distance to go, and you can guide us, Master Hasra, then I am more than willing to go off the trail and venture to a quicker route.
We're probably best keeping with the trail.
I was going to concur. I would rather prefer to follow the trail, because why put it on the map? Why not just put the finish point on the map?
I agree.
I cannot read these things, but I'm assuming that the trail is there for a reason, to guide us along a certain path.
There's a saying in the land that I hail from: shortcuts make for long delays.
We have something similar. Yes, I know what you mean.
Should we never throw a stone at a bird?
Is that because it might throw it back, or?
You come from a strange and distant land, Mr. Hasra. In our land, birds cannot throw stones.
We used to have a saying when I was on the street. It was, never eat yellow snow.
I have never seen this thing that you call snow.
It's white and cold.
Oh.
Maybe we have to collect things on our way, and that's why the trail's marked.
Or maybe there are things to test us, test our resolve.
Well, to be fair, we can say maybe and what if all morning, but I think the best way is to put one foot in front of the other and march on.
So you take Mr. Hasra's words, and everybody sets off again. And could you all make me endurance checks, please? Hengist and Hasra, you're fine. Gulliver, you will have 1 level of fatigue when we next stop, and so will Bartleby. Okay, so you head down, and you notice that the terrain becomes a lot more unsteady, and it gets to the point that everybody is almost like being slowed down, because the dips and the mounds are getting more and more pronounced. Can somebody roll me, please, just a 1d100? I'll tell you the skill level in a second. Let me just find it. It's in our...
Do you want to roll it now and then?
Yeah, you can do it. That's fine. 47. Yeah, and Fineal seems to manage to keep control of his horse, and it doesn't fall or buck him out or anything like that. And you figure you're about halfway along the map. So if I just bring out, you're probably halfway between the giant potato and what appears to be two giant hands. And you notice that your progress has been a lot slower, and that you're slowly coming to a watch, and some of you are getting very tired, and Ark, out of anybody, seems to acknowledge that some of you are not used to travelling this distances, and he sort of like mutters something to Tobias, and Tobias says, "Yes, I think it's time to have camp here." And you notice that he brings out his saddle bag, and he has a bedroll rolled up on it, and everybody sort of like starts getting their stuff out, and Ark goes off and pretty soon comes back with what appears to be kindling to light a fire. And he sort of like sets the fire going, and everybody sort of like sits round, and you sort of like bring out your trail rations, and Tobias brings out what appears to be some almost like a 3-course meal, and with lots of food and meat, and he sort of like sets it all out, and he gradually sort of like eats it, and he's sort of like, the sun starts to set, and as it starts to set, you sort of like settle down, and they sort of like you get talking to each other, and Tobias turns to you, Hasra, and says, "So tell me, Mr. Hasra, how proficient are you in the wild?"
I grew up moving from step to step across many lands, so I know the way of the trail. I mean, there are still a few things that may trip me up, that these are new, strange lands to me.
You look very capable.
I'd like to think that I can hold my own. I was just about to set out and lay some traps for maybe a hot breakfast, if I can catch anything.
Oh, interesting. I'm interested that you are able to hold your own. Maybe a competition is in order. Yes.
Survival is not a game to be played.
Ark! And Ark sort of like has taken his bear cloak off, and is just sort of like sat there in what very tight-fitting breeches, and it's sort of like his bare chest with his huge biceps and pectoral muscles. And Tobias says, my friend Ark here is somewhat interested, Mr. Hasra, in your general overall strength. Surely, why not have a friendly competition? Here and there, the sun is somewhat setting. It would be nice to waste away the hours, engaging in some fun competition.
I tend to find that my endurance is more capable than my strength.
I think that's a very good idea. A race, then.
Yes, I'm sure I could do something.
I have a better idea. Why do we not think about a competition of endurance? Yes, I have thought of one that requires a lot of endurance and no strength, but pure nimbleness and dexterity and agility. I'm sure Ark would be up for it. And Ark sort of like grunts and says,
Gulliver's
then.
going to turn to Bartleby and say, "Are they going to have a dance-off?"
What do you have in mind, Tobias?
It is a fun game that we have in the town of Advent, that our men of great prowess and capability play against each other. The game is somewhat simple. both the men take up a bridge position on the floor, balancing their whole body on their two arms and their toes, forming almost like in, you know, that awful press-up position. And then the game is simple. You try to grab the other person's arm out the way, and the person who lands flat on their face is the loser. Please, indulge me. It will be great fun.
It is something I've never done before. And I'm
Do not worry. There is a great thing known as beginner's luck. I am sure it is with you. Let's play. Let's play.
Let us play this thing then. I'm eager to learn your culture. So
okay then. So this is a quite simple game. So we will take up the position. He draws a line in the sand, and he says, "Now remember, both hands must be on the opposite side of the line to each of the players, and then on the count of 3, then you may start. And all you need to do is pull or cause the other person to fall down." Fineal sort of like smiles and sort of like sits cross-legged, and Laram just about to walk forward, but she sort of like goes and this stops him. And anybody care for a wager? No, I realise Ark is quite formidable. I understand that. Right, let's play then. And you sort of like gather round as Hasra takes up his plank position, and so does Ark at the other side. And Tobias has this massive grin on his face. He's absolutely adoring the whole sort of like competition. And he says, "Right then, are we ready? After 3, I give a countdown, 3, 2, 1, and then off we go." And he says, "Are we ready? 3, 2, 1, go." Roll your athletics roll for me, please. Yeah, and they immediately what happens is that Ark whacks out his arm against your bridge, and you luckily, with that standard success, managed to lift your arm up at the last minute, Hasra, and he sort of like grabs at nothing. Yes, Hasra, what would you like to do?
I would like to, while he's doing that, take his opposite arm that he...
Yeah, the actions go one after the other.
Oh, right, sorry.
So do you wish to pull his arm out of the way?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so you need to roll for me, please, your unarmed combat.
Oh, this is what really does get me now. Bye.
You got this, Hasra!
Yeah, and Hasra whacks out his arm to try to knock out Ark's arm. And you just sort of like go, like that. And his arm is just sort of like solid. You know, he's sort of like, what? You know, and he doesn't move at all. Athletics roll, please. Yeah, and you sort of like quickly see that his other arm is coming for your spare arm, and you quickly shift the weight back onto the arm that you punched and try to swipe his arm out and move the other one, and Ark swipes out underneath your arm, and you both
grab him as he's pulling towards me.
You're still both in this press up position, and Tobias is going, "Oh, this is so much fun! I love this so much!" And yeah, so roll your unarmed combat.
Oh.
Yeah, and you sort of like swipe out with your other arm, trying to grab it and pull it, but you misjudge the distance altogether, and you just swipe through thin air. You're not even close as you move. Yeah, and move your roll your athletics. Yeah, and you see Ark's hand coming towards your arm, and you raise it up, and his arm goes straight underneath yours, and you're both poised there again, sort of like facing off to each other. What would you like to do? Tobias is over the moon. He's actually clapping. He's actually going, this is so good!
What other options do I have? I mean, I'm trying to unarmed combat. Could I...
You could talk to him harshly if you wish.
Unarmed combat is then.
Sorry.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, you whack him again. Yeah, and with a 32, he just sort of like moves his arm out of the way. You need to roll your athletics now. Yeah, and you manage to avoid his combat arm again as well. It seems to be almost like stalemate. And Ark sort of like looks up at you as you take another swing at him, and then he just sort of like looks at you and says, he just like looks you straight in the eye and almost like says, "I've had enough. You have some prowess." And he just sort of like stands up and goes and sits by the fire once more. And Tobias goes, "Oh, this is so... Oh, you can match my friend Ark, Hasra. You are true to your word. You are a fine combatant. I am very impressed. Now, who will be next?" And he looks around and he says, "Master Hengist."
I've never shied away from anything. I'm happy to join in.
Yeah, and you get up and Fineal says, "Wait, I have a better idea." And she smiles, and Laram sort of like comes over, and he says to you, "Let's arm wrestle." And he sort of like puts his elbow down on the ground and reaches out his huge massive hand, and he just sort of like flexes it like this.
Gulliver just sticks his head in his hand, and you just see his head shaking.
Hengist is gonna sort of like roll his shoulders like this, unbuckle, because he's still got part of his armor on, so he's gonna unbuckle his pauldrons and his just like his shoulder armor.
Yeah.
So
And Gulliver's going to lean in close to Bartleby and say, "Don't put any money on him. He got beat by the cook last time."
The cook? What cook?
And
He got killed by a cook.
and it was a woman.
Oh no! I'm definitely, if Laram wasn't one of my arch enemies, no offence, Fineal, I would be putting on money from him. But go, Hengist, you can probably do this. So so Hengist, so this
will sit down and clasp Loran's hand, ready to.
So this is how the arm wrestle works. So if we both succeed as our unarmed combat roll, then nobody takes any damage. It's a standard roll. If one person wins, i.e. there's a difference in the rolls, as in you fail at standard but I succeed at standard, or you succeed at standard but mine's a critical, or the other way round, then you apply the damage that you would normally do with an unarmed combat. Armor is not counted, and then you've got the amount of hit points on your arm. Okay, so say for example you've got 8 hit points. Once somebody has done 8 hit points worth of damage to your arm, then they've won. Okay, so you can get it that you do 4, and then you do 4, and then 5, then 5. Can you see? So it can actually go backwards and forwards. So it's unarmed combat first, and then whoever wins that roll. Okay, if you're both standard, then it's just stood. It's in deadlock, like that, until somebody actually does the winning one. Okay, then. So
unarmed combat.
Yeah. And just to make it, which ones of my rolls can you see? Can you? No, you can't.
We haven't seen any of your rolls. So
Okay,
far.
then that's fine.
None,
Doesn't
yeah.
matter. Yeah. Okay then. So everybody gets ready, and you sort of like aim off, and Ram is just sort of like there giving you the evil looks, and your hand seems so incredibly small inside here. And Tobias goes, "Are you ready? Ready? 3, 2, 1, go!" Like that. Right. Unarmed combat rolls.
Hengist rolled his about 2 minutes ago, but he's keeping it because it's a good roll.
Right. So.
I re-rolled it before. I thought you wanted it earlier, so I'm happy to re-roll it, or I can.
No, that's absolutely fine because you win that one. So roll your damage. So you'll roll 1d3 and then add your strength, your normal damage modifier to it.
No, what it is? It's what's.
I imagined it to be brawl first, and then whoever won the brawl would then see whether or not they got their unarmed combat, and then they did the damage.
Yeah, we could have done that, but I'm happy with. Have we done some damage?
I was just checking what my damage mod. Does my damage mod count?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it said.
Yeah, so you sort of like move the arm, and you're sort of like a little bit over halfway. Let's do. I've got brawn. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's do brawn instead, because that's more matching skills. So here we go. So brawn roll now. What did I get? Yeah, I succeed. Yeah, so now we're both locked in combat. Okay then. So now we do another roll.
So it's still brawn this time.
Still brawn. Yeah, I still win. Yeah, and you still win, and so everybody's sort of like that. So you managed to push his arm back, and now he's stationary again. Okay, it's brawn again. I succeed. Oh, you fail. Yeah. So okay. So I do damage. 1d. You take 4 points of damage to your arm, but it's not real damage.
Okay.
So just take it off and then mark off, and then when you've got nothing left, let me know. So we're how far? 4 out of what?
4 out of 5. Yeah.
Right. So he sort of like pushes you right way down. So your arm is now sort of like that. He's like this. Yeah.
You notice that sort of like all the muscles in Hengist's right arm, sort of like up around his neck, are all sort of like standing out. Like he's like
really straining, and Laram is just sort of like whistling. Yeah. Okay. And roll again for your brawn. I succeed.
I have confidence in you, Hengist.
Oh no! Let's have
the size of him.
And I do
I've lost
3 points of damage.
I've lost no matter what.
And he sort of like goes whack down on the floor, and he just sort of like stands up and says, "Good try, Master Hengist." And Fineal says, "Well done, Laram." And Tobias says, "Oh, that is so exciting."
Hengist will stand up and offer his hand out to Laram to shake his say, "Well done."
Yeah, and he sort of like grabs your hand, and it's just sort of like it's like a little child's hand inside a big thing, and he just sort of like.
Hengist is going to do his best to give a firm handshake, despite the fact his hand's engulfed in this. Like
yeah, and you, as you sort of like congratulating each other, you hear the howl of a wolf. If you didn't have your music turned on, you wouldn't have heard it. But you can hear this solitary howl of a wolf, and Tobias sort of goes like that, and Ark sort of like looks around and just says to you, coyotes. And Tobias says, will they attack? Will they actually attack? And Ark says, maybe, but they'll probably want the food rather than eating us. And he looks at you, Gulliver, and says, unless some of us are more tender than others. You know.
But perhaps we should just build the fire up a bit more. It should scare them away.
And Tobias agrees with that, and they put a bit of fire up, and it comes to this wonderful decision about watches. Who's going to do what in the watch? And
I thought about this on our way here. I think we should do 2 people watching at all times, and it be one of us and one of you.
I was about to suggest the same thing, Gully. That's a good idea.
I agree.
Okay,
You Mr. Bartleby and Gulliver, I don't think you should do a watch. I think you should get a good night's sleep so you're fresh for the morning. That's my opinion.
Oh, I had a really good night's sleep the other night. I slept right the way through at Mr. Piggins.
Oh, wonderful. I did too.
Yes.
I'd like a nice rest, actually. That does sound nice.
Okay then. So it's coming up to about 10 o'clock at night. So sunrise will be at 6. So you've got like 8 hours to sort of like cover the watches. So what is the idea? Who will be watching first with whom? Tobias and Fineal are quite happy to go with whatever you suggest. So
Okay, so I think it should be, or Gulliver say, the watches will be as follows. We will have Hengist and Levan as one watch.
okay.
We will have Hasra and Ark as another watch.
Yes, I concur.
Okay.
And then I will watch with Fineal, and Bartleby will watch with Tobias.
Yeah, that sounds fair. That sounds, yeah.
I'd recommend that Bartleby goes first, and then he can get the full uninterrupted rest after that.
I mean, I wouldn't mind going in the middle of the evening. It's the best time to see the moon.
Yeah,
Yes.
so if Gulliver and Fineal go first, 10 o'clock to midnight, and then Bartleby, you can do midnight till 2, and then either Hasra or Hengist can do 2 till 4, then the last one can do 4 till 6, and that'll be the things covered. Okay.
And none of us happy with that because that's going to be when the fire's going to be at the biggest as well. So
and it's interesting because you all settle down, and Gulliver and Fineal, you start the first watch, and Tobias sort of like settles down, but when you actually look across Gulliver, you notice that Ark is not actually asleep. He's actually sat near Tobias and just sort of like staying awake, you know, and you look across and you notice Laram is doing exactly the same. It doesn't look like they're actually sleeping. It's almost as if they don't trust that the whole setup. And they'll
regret it in the morning.
You hear some howls throughout the night as it starts getting darker and darker, and then you notice, Gulliver, that Tobias sort of like turns over on his in his little bedroll, and he sort of like reaches out and sort of like pulls up the covers back over him, and as he does, he pulls it up. You notice that his obviously he's had his armor off, but you notice that his long sleeved tunic moves slightly, and he sort of like pulls it up, and then he sort of like rolls over on it, and just for a moment, Gulliver.
I know what I see.
Just for a moment, you actually see.
Oh no!
I know I might have mine open.
You see.
Come on, I found mine quicker than that.
Have you got yours?
I got mine open.
You see a tattoo on his wrist that you remember seeing once before.
On Jeremiah's
Wrist. And you see it for just an instant until he rolls over and it disappears.
Did it look like it was burnt or tattooed?
You don't see it for that amount of time. You just sort of like see it in the firelight as it comes across. And people, we will leave it there. So when we come back next week, the first watch will be coming to an end. Okay, so I'm missing somebody off my screen. There you go. So the first watch will be coming to an end. It'll still be night time, and we've still got the rest of the evening. Okay, so that is where we'll be up to. Right, well done. Well done, Hasra, matching out Ark, and Hengist, you did well as well.
I mean, the guy is massive. Like, you could probably fit.
I do remember you saying earlier that you could take him. I'm sure I heard that.
I could take him.
I'm sure I heard I could take him somewhere.
I did it right. I did 4 points of damage to it.
Just a thought, should we all get these tattoos on our wrists?
I was thinking that perhaps we could get a pen, like an ink pen or ink brush, and just ink them on and pretend.
By all means. Okay then. Does anybody have any announcements for next week?
I'm pregnant.
I do not.
Cool. So
apart from that, I might be playing Shadowrun on Tuesday, and I'll be playing.
Yeah, so if I'll give those out. So generally, if you've enjoyed the role-playing game tonight, then hopefully on Tuesdays at 9 o'clock, 7 o'clock, sorry, we play Shadowrun with Big Beastie, Longshanks CPG, and Chuggerwooker. On Thursday, we have started up a recent Call of Cthulhu RPG session with Mr. Pickles, Longshanks CPG, and Chuggerwooker, which was the first one last week, which got very interesting very quickly.
Very good.
I don't think somebody did get scared, I think. I think Mr.
Pickles' character
did Mr. Weber. Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't scared, guys.
Lost a bit of sanity. Now, tomorrow I will be
pretty scary.
Say again, sorry.
Blankets or sheets can be.
Yeah. So that will be on Thursday at 7 o'clock. I will be back streaming tomorrow at 3 o'clock with more Elder Scrolls Online, and then I will be back again a week today for both Elder Scrolls Online at 3 o'clock BST, but also for Mythras at 7 o'clock. Also, I start my summer holidays on Wednesday, so don't forget to press that follow button, because I'll be doing some impromptu streaming left, right and centre. So keep up to date by following that, and also follow me on Twitter at Inwills. And you can also check out the website, inwills.co.uk. So thank you very much for coming along tonight. Players, best bit, problems, issues?
Best bit was probably the dream.
Right. I like the dream too. That was a magical moment.
That was a magical moment.
Actually, no,
change my mind. The best moment was the breakfast after the dream.
Oh,
You got comfortable looking across the table.
Yeah, I think the cheese was the best bit for Gulliver.
Cheese was the best bit. Yeah, I think the best bit for me was the pulling the stool out from underneath the pull. Oh, Chuggerwugger's left roll 20. He's gone.
No, it's crashed again. Sorry.
Yeah, so brilliant. Okay then, so well done, guys. We'll see what happens next Saturday in the night with coyotes closest at hand. So, yes, so it just remains for me to say, please remember to be who you are and say what you feel, because the people who mind don't matter and the people who matter don't mind. Have fun, guys, and I will catch you all later. And until then, I would like to say, consider yourself well and truly waffled. Have fun, guys. Bye.